USA podcast where we put you on the map. This is Ron Costa broadcasting live from the Mappable USA studios in Las Vegas. And folks, everybody thinks blockchain is the future, but we're here today to tell you it's actually happening today. We're going to prove it to you. And in order to do that, let's bring in Vicky Hutchmala from the WorldTokenMarket.com, among so many other projects. Vicky, how you doing today?
I'm fabulous today, Ron. Another excellent, beautiful, warm day in Vegas, and we have a special guest today. We're going to take real estate to the next level, and he's going to tell us how to do it. Can't wait.
All right, sounds great. So let's bring him on right now. Folks, we're going to bring in Barry Moniês from REINNO. Barry, how you doing today?
Hey, I'm great, Ron and Vicky. Thank you so much for having me on the show.
I'm looking forward to the show today, Barry. It's going to be great. You're the co-founder of the company, right? And REINNO isn't Reno, Nevada. This is the company name that you have, right?
Correct. That is correct. And by the way, thanks for making me jealous. I'm here in rainy Connecticut, and you guys are in beautiful Las Vegas. But
that's our
okay.
job,
That's
Barry.
okay.
That's our job.
But yes,
well,
I'm one of the
co-founders.
co-founders. I am one of the co-founders with two other partners, Chris and Victor.
All right, that's great. And you obviously see the future of blockchain. Why don't you give us your background first before we get into the meat of the conversation with the company?
Well, I was born in California. That's too far back, right? Let's start further, closer to the last couple of years. So I actually have and started a IT support company providing computer network support, building, managing, securing, and coding IT networks for small to medium companies, mostly professional services in real estate, finance, and the legal industry, as well as some municipalities. So I've been doing that for 22 years. And I'll give you how I started, and it'll all come together, and I'll do it rather quickly. So one of the things we focus on as Computronics, which was my core company for these 22 years, is disaster recovery, making sure small, medium companies are protected. And one of the biggest problems that have surfaced over the last few years, or going back, actually it's about 10 years now, is ransomware. I don't know if you're aware of it. Ransomware is where a hacker is able to get into your machine and they basically lock up all the files, and then a screen pops on your monitor saying, hey, your data has been encrypted and you better send us Bitcoin or we won't unlock it and you'll lose it forever. So many years ago, and this has happened twice in 22 years in business to two clients who did not have our disaster recovery services. So this is not a conversation about ransomware, but I'll get to the point. So you had to buy Bitcoin. So whatever it was, many years ago, 5 to 10 years ago, I had to go out and find Bitcoin for one of our clients who did not have a valid backup, which is really the right way to fix ransomware. Just go back to a backup before the ransomware hit you and then protect yourself. Anyway, so I had to go through this whole rigmarole to find Bitcoin. You had to go get gift cards at Walgreens and then, submit them and get it. So anyway, I did that for a client, and I think it was $300 that they wanted in Bitcoin at that time. And we paid them, and luckily the hacker gave us the password, and we unlocked the client's data. Anyway, when it happened the second time, a year or two later, I said, you know what, I better buy some more Bitcoin just in case. So I was very fortunate. I like to say, I was smart at the time, but I wasn't. I was lucky. I ended up buying some extra Bitcoin at $400 a coin way back when.
Wow.
So that was really my intro to Bitcoin in a real functional way and utilizing it and got a touch of what blockchain was about. So point being is fast forward about 3-4 years ago, when we had this huge explosion, I guess around 17, in cryptocurrency and blockchain was behind it all as the underlying database. Point being is I saw that there was a potential to utilize that underlying database in other aspects of business. So I actually bought a software company which was to focus on bringing enterprise-level blockchain solutions to small and mid-sized businesses. Problem is that there really were no case studies, and it wasn't easy to sell blockchain services to small businesses because they didn't have any clue what it meant or why they needed it. So fast forward a little to about a year and a half ago. So I had a company, as I said, a software company which we purchased, which was beginning to look at blockchain and how we can apply it to businesses. Anyway, I am also the chairman of the board for an organization called the Soundview Club, which is a private business networking club here in Stamford, Connecticut, or Fairfield County. And one day the executive director called me and said, hey, I got this call from this guy, Victor. I have no idea what he's talking about. You need to talk to him. So point being is Victor, who's my current partner in REINNO, he, as a successful entrepreneur in Bulgaria, did phenomenal with an e-commerce business as well as an index for cryptocurrency, which obviously didn't do well when cryptocurrency died. But point being is that he had learned about tokenization and that the United States, our Securities and Exchange Commission, was going to allow tokens, which represent real estate, and we'll go into that, as a legal security offering. So Victor came here from Bulgaria, ended up in Stamford, as he didn't want to bring his family to New York. They wanted to live a little more out in the suburbs. And he called the Soundview Club looking to get involved locally in business, and the executive director put him in touch with me. So I met Victor, and we hit it off. We were both understood. We were both on the same focus and the same vision, which is to bring liquidity or more liquidity to the commercial real estate industry, which doesn't exist today. So we started this fintech company called REINNO, utilizing blockchain to bring liquidity to the commercial real estate market. So that's how we got to where we are.
Boy, that's some story.
Nice.
That is really impressive. Yeah, that's really impressive. What does REINNO stand for? Is there a connotation there?
It's a funny story, and touch on it real quick. So REINNO is REINNO, and RE stands for real estate, INNO stands for innovation. So it's real estate innovation is what it really means. The problem is that in looking on how we wanted to pronounce it, especially here in America, in Europe and other countries they would pronounce it REINNO. We even looked at REINNO, and the problem is in trying to explain REINNO, I would use the only thing I could think of in American language would be like reindeer, REI, REI. And so now if I'm talking about reindeer, what does it have to do with tokenization? We didn't want to confuse people, so we're using REINNO. REINNO makes it easy. REINNO's a great place, and it's easy to remember that.
Yeah, it's funny because when I just introduced you on the podcast, I said this is Barry Moniês from REINNO, and if people didn't know better, they would think that you're in Reno, Nevada. So I had to clear that up, I think.
Oh, that's right. That's right. I didn't think of it that way, especially since you're in Vegas. So.
Yes. Yeah. So REINNO's been in operation for how long now, as it stands now?
So REINNO's going on officially about a little less than 2 years. We formed it officially last year, and we looked at the marketplace, and what our whole business model is based on is tokenization, which is basically, in simple terms, creating digital representation of debt or equity, specifically related to commercial real estate. So what that means is that the way it works today in real estate is when you buy a property or a piece of property, you're either getting a deed or a share of ownership. And if it's debt, you're taking loans against it, you're getting a mortgage, you're signing a mortgage. So you're signing all these papers and everything else. And in order to do that, in order to be a part and purchase real estate or buy into real estate, that whole market is saved for the big boys. And what I mean is you got to have a lot of money, you got to have lawyers, title companies, you got to have banks, you got to have closings. And it's a huge expense to get involved with commercial real estate. And thereby it's pretty much been kept out of the hands of the general public. But it is one of the safest and lucrative industries that exists out there. I mean, everybody knows real estate to be, a concrete investment. Yes, it goes up and down, but over time we've seen real estate, have multiple increases, of course, depending on condition, where it is, and all those other things. But getting back to where tokenization plays. So by tokenizing real estate or creating digital representation, it does several things. Number one, you are creating fractional ownership. So you can sell pieces of real estate as digital ownership, and you can sell it in small quantities. And you don't have to have these big closings. You don't need a ton of lawyers. You don't need title insurance. You don't need banks. You don't need all this stuff. You're going out to the market. You're raising money for a token. So, for example, if I've got a $3 million building, I could have 3 million tokens issued for $1 a piece. And, Ron, essentially, you can go to my website and you could read about the property. I would have, obviously, maybe an appraisal on there and whatever financials you want to see. And if you decide you want to be part of this, you could buy let's say I allowed you to buy $1,000 worth. I would then transfer 1,000 tokens to your digital wallet, which is like PayPal, a wallet, digital, and you would get these tokens in there, which represent $1,000 worth of the building that I just sold you into. You'd send me the money, I'd send you the tokens, and the deal is done. So we could basically get you investing in commercial real estate in an hour or less. That's how simple it is. And that's what tokenization is about. So the ease of use, there's also tremendous security in utilizing blockchain. So what blockchain is, in simple terms, a distributed database, a database that is copied across, say, millions of computers. So it is almost impossible to do anything fraudulent, to change records, because you're checking against a certain portion of a million computers to make sure that all the records are exactly the same, that nobody played with one of them. So you've got security, you've got ease of transaction. The costs are minor. What was the cost to have you invest in the example I just told you? Went to my website, put some money in, send you some tokens, you're now an owner. So that's the core of tokenization. Did I kind of make that clear?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And a couple of questions on that for starters is you guys are doing your own software program. You're creating the tokens within your company, right? Your software developers do this for you, right?
Yeah, so we have a programming team. We have a team here in the U.S. We also have a team in Europe. And that's a great question, because one of the concerns in this industry where tokenization is now becoming more widespread, and we'll touch on that and the competitors, but you don't want everybody creating tokens with different standards. So there are certain standards there, and we are creating the tokens on the Ethereum blockchain, which is one of the most recognized business blockchains out there. So we're using an industry standard blockchain that is recognized, and there are also standards within that infrastructure that governs how you issue and create the tokens. And it's called an ERC-20. So that's pretty transportable across multiple wallets that will handle ERC-20 tokens. And that's just a technical standard of the way these things are created. And again, I'm trying to keep it pretty simple, not too technical.
Yeah, no, it's fine. Do you guys create the wallet as well, or do you have to go to a third party for the wallet?
So we can provide a wallet, an ERC-20 wallet, but they currently exist. They're out there. There are a lot of third-party wallets out there. So it's really up to the investor and the sponsor would be the real estate owner, to decide how they want that done. It can go to escrow, so custodial service, who will hold them for you, in trust for you, or they can go right to your wallet. So some of the things, though, that have come out in this whole recognition of tokenization as a security by the SEC, and by the way, they tend to be called STOs, securitized token offerings, which are tokens that are securitized against an asset. And in this call, obviously, we're talking about real estate, where we focus, commercial real estate.
Yeah. Some people are using the word cryptocurrency associated with security token offerings, almost like interchangeable. But I think there's a distinction to be made, because with the security token offerings, there's some kind of asset behind it. Isn't that right? Or it has to be SEC qualified?
Exactly. So 2 points here. Number one, that is probably one of the biggest problems that tokens or security tokens have, is their supposed association to cryptocurrency. You mentioned that to most people. Say, oh, you're talking about Bitcoin and stuff. Well, no, we're not. And the simple explanation is, if you think of a coin, a Bitcoin, there is no underlying asset. It's based on supply and demand of that coin, which represents some value to whatever people assume it to be. So, they're equating Bitcoin to gold now, and to digital gold. But that's in the eyes and in the transactions of the people transacting. A token, as we're discussing here, especially a securitized token, has an underlying asset that it's secured against.
Right.
So it is different. So they're 2 totally different. Now, they both rely on the blockchain. And again, a blockchain is just a recording ledger. And if you want, we can give a simple explanation of what blockchain is. So we have a foundation for that also.
So do you do most all of your services, the services that you provide, in-house, or do you engage different third parties doing different aspects?
So in terms of tokenization, it's all done in-house, and it's done to the standards, which I told you, which I briefly touched on. So, but our team 100% creates the tokens, and they're recorded on the Ethereum blockchain. So you could go to the Ethereum blockchain, what's called an explorer, and you can actually look up the record of these tokens we create for different real estate projects.
Oh, okay. You know, I have a question as you're talking. I understand the ease in the process in the transaction because you're eliminating a lot of the traditional professional people, the title company, the lawyers, the real estate agents, all of that. You're kind of eliminating them from the transaction, but you are also increasing the number of owners you have in a property in light of the small amount of investment that's required. Does that create a problem in the overall ownership in the transaction when you want to go sell the actual building instead of the fractionalized pieces?
So most of the questions I get, once people understand it's just a digital representation of debt or equity, that's really what it is at the core. But excuse me, what comes into play really is how that applies to real estate. So the questions might be, well, what happens if the value of the property goes up or the property goes down or I want to sell or whatever? Nothing changes in the way real estate is transacted or governed by regulations and laws now. Everything is the same. The only difference is you're holding representation of ownership or debt digitally. So it really cuts out a lot of the middlemen that are involved in the acquisition or investment of commercial real estate. Now, you still have to do and follow regulations. You still have to do all the legal requirements that are required now for raising capital for real estate. So what that means, and we'll touch on three. So under the SEC rules, there's one that's called the Regulation A offering, which means you can offer whatever you're offering, in this case a commercial building, to the general public. There's a Regulation D, which is very common, which you can offer the general public, but it's only for accredited investors. You know, people who make over $200,000 a year or have $1 million or have $1 million in assets and equity outside their house. And then the third one that we'll refer to today is the Reg S, which means you're selling your offering internationally. When it comes to tokens, you can do any of them. Again, it's just representing ownership. But the great thing about it is that if we were to sell a commercial building today and we wanted to sell it to international investors, so we're going to put an ad out there in the newspapers around the world and say, hey, invest in American property. The problem is that now you got paperwork that's got to go back and forth. You've got lawyers. You've got translation required services. With tokens, I can offer a token anywhere in the world. And again, they send the money in, and that's going to be whatever method I choose as the owner or sponsor of the real estate, selling the real estate. And they're going to get tokens, send the money in, and I'm going to send tokens out to them. So to your point, it does eliminate everything. It makes it very streamlined, but you still have to conform to all the rules of a public offering.
Well, that's kind of understandable, but I'm wondering who determines to buy the property, who determines to sell the property. If you have 10 or 20 or however many owners of a piece of property by virtue of their investment, does that create a problem when you want to go sell the entire commercial real estate parcel, or does everybody agree initially when they put in their investment that they kind of relinquish their power of ownership?
So it's really up to the sponsor or the issuer, the person or persons that own the real estate. And again, it's no different than what would happen today if you had nothing to do with tokenization. So today when you sell a commercial property, if you've got 100 investors, what are the rules for selling it? Well, those are pre-written when the people invest, basically saying you have no right or you have a certain amount of voting right, or maybe we say 51%, the majority rules of ownership by shares or by dollars invested, whatever it is. The great thing so everything's the same as happens today in real estate. So what do you do when you have 100 owners of a commercial real estate today? So that's what I mean. Everything is the same as it would be today, except that the ownership is held digitally, and it's easier to transact and more secure.
Well, and an owner can get in easily, but also get out easily, and so there's a lot of liquidity there instead of waiting until the whole property is sold and getting your percentage. And as you say, you set it up initially. So your determination of which property to invest in is based on what the parameters are of the rules of how it's going to work in the future. You just make it easy to do.
Correct.
Streamline it and cost effective.
Yes, and the great thing about it is that we now no longer have to conform to bank criteria for
which
lending.
That alone is great.
Right, because now you're transacting between offering an investor, and you don't have to conform to the banks, which are pretty rigid requirements, and their covenants, and their, you can't do anything once you get a mortgage because, they've encumbered the property, and they have certain rules about putting more debt on it or selling equity and everything else. But I do want to touch on one thing around what you said. So some of these offerings, as I said, when you offer real estate to the public, or anything, business, or anything you want to offer, startup, raising money, but especially in commercial real estate and tokenization, again, this is besides tokenization, you still have certain requirements under the SEC rules. And that is, for example, under Reg D, somebody who buys into a Reg D offering, whether it's tokens or not, has to wait 1 year before they can trade it. So you can't trade it for 1 year. That's a requirement on an equity investment. And there are other rules, and we can go into this. 40 days on the debt side. It depends if they're in America or out of America. So that's one of the problems with liquidity, is the fact that even if you buy into a commercial property, whether tokenized or not, there is a holding period where you can't trade it, which scares a lot of investors, especially when we're talking about tokens. They don't want to get into something and be stuck for a year and not be sure how they're going to get out. So that is actually the second thing that REINNO does. So first is providing tokenization. Number two is we are going to be the first company that lends against tokens. So once you as an investor buy into a property and you get tokens, you can come to REINNO and you can pledge those tokens, and we will give you a loan against those tokens. So, for example, we talked about a $3 million building. So Ron comes up and he says, I want to own $1 million worth of that building at $1 a piece. I'll take 1 million tokens. So now you've just put $1 million into it, and the way it's being offered is through Regulation D, which means you've got to wait a year before you can do anything with it. But what you could do is you could take those 1 million tokens. You can come to REINNO, and you can take a loan against those 1 million tokens. We have our own proprietary risk assessment model on the website, and you can almost instantly get a loan. So you go to our website, you put in what you have. I got these tokens against this property, and I would like a loan, and I'd like this percentage rate if possible, this monthly payment, and I'd like it over a 3-year period. So we're going to look at that, do almost an instant risk assessment, and we might lend you $800,000 or $600,000. It just depends on a bunch of factors. And that money is sent right to you once you send your tokens into our wallet. So you're pledging your asset, which is digital representation of commercial real estate, against a loan. So that is one of the aspects of creating liquidity. So now, Ron, you now have back, let's say, $700,000 that you can buy more tokens, or you can go do something else. You still have your tokens, which are pledged. They're encumbered by us. We're holding them. But you've got cash that you can do other things with while you let those tokens sit and hopefully appreciate based on the value of the property.
That's remarkable.
Wow. Yeah,
Nobody's
that is a
that.
first.
Yeah.
No one. Yeah, that's basically crypto lending in a way. It's you're forming your own bank, your pseudo bank. It sounds like, on something like that, which is great.
Right.
That's really amazing.
We're not really a bank, but we are doing lending.
Yeah.
And we're doing it in conjunction with partners at this point. So that is really to create liquidity.
Yeah. To take advantage of that, though, do your tokens have to be on the same backbone on Ethereum 20?
At this point, ERC-20 tokens, yes. And as I said, there's even further. There's an ERC 884, which is basically certain rules that allow us or require us under Delaware law as formed as a company, REINNO formed in Delaware. Point being is that to offer tokens, they have to be burnable. They have to be replaceable. When I say burnable, if somebody loses them, they have to be able to be destroyed digitally, and you have to be able to replace them. So there are laws in place to protect the investor, and that's which is very different than Bitcoin.
Does that mean does that mean that if someone forgets their crypto wallet, what do they call it, the private key, they're not at a loss of all their tokens and money, right?
Correct. That's exactly right. And, although it's not crypto, and that's like a bad word, but that's okay.
Yeah, I know, it is a bad word.
It's the token wallet. It's the same wallet. It's the same thing. As long as it's an ERC-20 wallet, you can have the tokens in there. If you lose access, somebody steals it, we can void that. We also control who you can send those to or transfer them to at any time by whitelisting it. And that's for your protection as an investor, and it also protects the issuer or the person selling the property. What I mean by that is after the year time is up, you'll be able to list your tokens on a secondary market. And that's where we truly believe that liquidity comes, by lending against these assets, and then a secondary market is really what explodes. So it's like, we're doing margin on stocks, but then there's also a secondary market to trade this stuff. So once the year is up of you holding, you can go trade them, and there's one of the biggest exchanges in America is called T0, and there's one in London called RChex. They're all over the world, and places where you can openly trade your tokens, your securitized tokens around the world. So point being is that, yes, we have certain rules to be able to burn them and replace them if there's a problem.
Well, let's talk about these secondary markets a little bit. Obviously, with stocks and bonds, they're all over the place. You can do that easily. With crypto, you mentioned T0. How does your token get on that system?
So, like the same way you'd list any security on any exchange, there's certain requirements, there's certain costs, but you can basically list it on there, and it'll be open to the public for trading back and forth between them. It depends on the exchange and how it's done, and there's a whole bunch of variables. The point is that it's all about creating liquidity for these tokens to the public, because if somebody buys something, they can't touch it for a year. It's in a new technology. They don't know if is this technology going to be around tomorrow or not. The general public is just beginning to understand and learn more about tokens and blockchain. So we as REINNO are trying to make it easy as possible for entities to get involved and take advantage of the benefits provided by tokenization. So actually the three things that REINNO does is, as I said, number one is tokenization, and let me touch on that for a second. So there's a lot of companies out there that have raised a lot of money, and their model is to tokenize. That's what they're doing, and they're charging upwards of $100,000 to tokenize your property, and they give you these tokens, they put them in your wallet, and they say, there you go, go for it. And just because you tokenize does not mean you have people lining up with checks. It's still an offering. Right. You still have to go sell it. It's just that the ownership is easy to transfer, and it's digital. So we believe that tokenization will be just a do-it-yourself service at some point, the same way 10, 15 years ago, a website cost $50,000 or $100,000. Today, you get it for $2 a month on GoDaddy. We believe tokenization will be the same. So right now, tokenization, people are charging upwards of $100,000. We believe in a year or two's time, that price is going to come down to next to nothing, hundreds of dollars or even $19 a month for do as many tokens as you want. So we believe that tokenization is just part of the answer, and it's really the foundation of what we're really doing. So number one is tokenization. Number two, REINNO does, as I told you, is lending against tokens. And one other thing I want to bring up about the lending. So today, when you get a loan from a bank, again, against a building, so we'll use the same building, $3 million building, we're going to get a loan. We're going to get a $2 million loan against it. Well, the rules say from pretty much every bank, you can't put any more debt on it. You can't sell any equity. You can't sell your position out unless you're taking the whole thing out. And the worst part is, let's say it's a 10-year loan, and let's say in the 9th year and 11 months you've paid back everything out of that $2 million loan except for $1,000, or let's say it's $10,000. You owe your last month's payment. How much of your property is still encumbered? Well, to the time you owe the last penny, the bank is holding a lien against your property for the full $2 million. Even though you paid back $1,999,000, yes, they're still holding $2 million. Well, REINNO, when you take a loan against the tokens that you own, against an asset, real estate, as you pay back your principal against those tokens, we are giving you back tokens. So you are earning back your equity as you pay it down.
Oh, wow.
So by the time you pay your last token, which is worth $1, right, because we said they're $1 a token, you've already gotten back $1,999,999 back. So that's a different model than exists now. Totally disrupt the lending environment. So one was tokenization, two is lending against STOs, and the third thing REINNO is doing is we're coming out with a marketplace. And simple terms, it's a Craigslist for STOs or an eBay for STOs. You will be able to go on our website and search for the criteria you want in considering investing in commercial real estate. You would go on there and say, you know what, I'm looking for, I want something in the Northeast. I'd like something around New York City. I'd like to get a 8% return. I only want, I want to make sure that they're going to sell the property and I'm going to get reimbursed. I'm going to get make my money in no more than 10 years. So you'll put in the criteria, and properties will pop up, and you'll be able to say, okay, I want to invest $1,000 in that one, $10,000 in that one, $1 million in that one. So it'll be your marketplace for you to go and shop for STOs. And once you have them, you can, on the same website, hit a different button and say, you know what, now that I own these tokens, which happens almost instantly, I'm going to take a loan against them and go buy some more. Margin and leverage.
Amazing. Yeah.
Margin.
Yeah, no, that's great.
So those three things are what REINNO's doing, which makes us much different because, as I said, most tokenization companies will do the tokenization, the technical part, and that's it. We're going a step further. The last thing I want to touch on with REINNO is we have a no-cost upfront tokenization offering. So we will tokenize a property for no money up front. So we're adamant about getting people involved with this, understanding the benefits of it, and willing to try it out without really any risk up front in dealing with us. So there's no $100,000 you got to put out, and if it doesn't work, you're out that money. We have an offering where it's free tokenization. The lending there's no charge for, and that gives you a unique way to approach investors. Hey, investor, I want you to invest in my property. Yes, it has a year holding period by law, by regulation, but you can also borrow against it and leverage it. Not only that, you as an issuer, a guy selling the real estate, you're going to list on our marketplace, and we're going to be attracting public people, investors from all around the world who might be interested in investing in your property. So that's kind of REINNO in a long nutshell. But
no, that's great. It's great information for sure. And, you know, on a previous podcast, we had a blockchain attorney on, and he was saying how it's really funny with respect to real estate. It was always the 3 L's, location, location, location. But now with blockchain, it's all about liquidity, liquidity, liquidity. And it really makes sense. You really drove that point home hard in this podcast, and it's a great point to make, because really liquidity is what stops a lot of people from moving forward. They don't want to tie up their money in these deals where they can't get the money out. And when you talk about stocks and bonds, we talked about that before. It's easy to do that because you can buy and sell whenever you want. But if you can get a secondary market on something like this, or even you mentioned the portal where you can go and find the property, that's really strong stuff. That portal is in development, right? You don't have that available yet, do you?
We have it in beta for our own internal testing. It'll be out in about 30 days. It'll be ready. Everything else is ready. Our instant lending is ready to go. We're still talking to and securing lending partners who are going to put up the capital that we're going to lend out. I mean, the tokenization is done. We're already doing tokenizations. We did $105 million a couple of weeks ago for a fund called REI Capital Growth, and they've got a unique way of selling and growing real estate, commercial real estate. Basically, all the monies that are made from the income side of the real estate are reinvested in leverage to grow the portfolio. So it's for people that are not looking for a dividend, although they're offering a dividend token and also, a debt token and an equity token. The equity side, there's no payments given out, but all the money is reinvested to grow the portfolio. So at such time as you decide to get out, after the first year of holding, your portfolio, the value of your tokens have multiplied, and the holdings have multiplied. And they also have a debt token, mostly for international investors, that they're going to pay about 4%. I know that's not a lot, but it's a lot in certain areas of the world. And that will allow people to invest in the debt on American real estate. So that's REI Capital Growth. And we tokenized their entire fund for $105 million. That's done.
Yeah, great.
We just did another one in Connecticut for about $2.5 million, a standalone building. Right after this call with you, I've got another call, which is about a $50 million apartment building, and we've got about 10 projects lined up. We're getting a tremendous amount of calls based on what we're doing and how we're doing it.
Yeah, whoever your marketing people are, they're doing a great job. I read all your press releases and your articles and everything. You're all over the place, and it's really you guys are really doing great stuff in the market. But before we close this out, can I take do a quick maybe theoretical example where somebody might be contacting you? Let's say somebody has there's an office building for sale in let's say downtown Vegas, for example, and I want to buy it, right? And I want to tokenize this deal. I basically can become my own syndicator by using tokenization. Isn't that right?
That's correct. You still have to sell it. You still have to get investors.
Right.
But we're giving you the tools to do that. We actually have a deal in Vegas we're about to close, and it's a property that has to do with the car industry. But it's a phenomenal deal, and they're looking to tokenize. They're looking to take out the existing loan from a bank,
right,
and replace it with investors for tokens. So you can use what we're offering to buy a property, to refinance a property, to raise capital for a property. I mean, every aspect of financing, what we're providing gives you the ability to do it quickly, efficiently, and truly cost-effectively.
Right. So I go to you guys. I say, you know what? I want to tokenize. I want to raise $100 million to buy this real estate, this commercial retail office building, and then you guys create the tokens, and then it's up to me to create, the PPM or whatever I need to do to get investors to buy into this, and then they buy it. They buy their tokens off your system, right?
Yes. Basically, yes. That's exactly how it works. By the way, we also provide a template PPM with token language, the disclosures and disclaimers already in there. So,
oh, nice.
So you don't have to pay a law firm $100,000 to figure this out for you. We've already done it. We've got a great law firm who's a partnership with us in bringing this to market, and they have done a phenomenal job in putting together all the documentations, especially the templates for the PPM and the offering, as well as the subscription agreements and everything else. So we give that to our clients. Now it's up to them to utilize their own lawyer, should they choose, to review it and fill it in. But we're giving all that to you. So, yes, to your point, you would come to us and say, hey, I want to raise capital through debt or equity for this property I have that's worth, $10 million. And what's the next step? Well, we would review the property. So we have advisors and people on staff that are basically have been in real estate for many, many years and are able to look at, and they come from, done billions of dollars in commercial real estate. So we have a team that reviews the offering. So it's not like you can just come to us and, let's say you have a little building that's worth $1 million. You can't just come to us and say, I'm going to tokenize it. I want $100 million. It doesn't work like that. And we're going to do things that make sense. As I said, we'll do the tokenization for free, one of our programs. And there's some criteria to that, but that's a discussion for another time. But point being is that we're going to review it to make sure it makes sense. We don't want you to fail, and we don't want you offering something that doesn't make sense to the public. We're not judging what you're doing. All we're doing is asking for a real appraisal, a real financials, things like that, and we review them to see if we feel that it's a valid deal. And then we'll tokenize it and list it. So we're a little more careful in watching out for the investors as opposed to some of our competitors who will just tokenize anything.
Yeah, and then two more questions. One, it sounds like you don't need a transfer agent in this process, or do you? You don't need one, do you?
Great question. So no, you don't. Because what we're doing, so one of the reasons that you utilize a transfer agent is to obviously verify transactions. And one of those transactions, of course, is what's called the cap table. So somebody has to keep track of who owns how many tokens and what do they get. So we offer that service. We're also partnering with some top companies in the industry for compliance and KYC and AML, all the things that are required by law. And KYC means know your customer, and AML is anti-money laundering. Same things you do when you open a bank account. But we're taking care of the cap table because you have to tell us who we're sending these tokens to. So you're welcome to have them as the owner of the property and the person who's hiring us. We can send you the tokens, but you have to make sure we have the list of who you sold them to and how much. One of the reasons is because we've got a very extensive and detailed platform where 3 different types of people can log in. One would be the sponsor or the issuer, the person who's selling or offering the real estate. Number 2 would be their investors. And the third type of login would be our partners who are utilizing our platform in conjunction with their own offering, like a crowdfunding platform that are, list all these properties for sale. We will offer them pretty much white label per se ability to offer their clients tokenization or in partnership with them. So they can now go back to these clients that have listed with them and say, hey, maybe you want to try tokenization. I'm partnered with REINNO, and they can take care of everything for you. So those are the three type of logins we have. Would be investor, issuer, and as I said, partners.
Okay, and the last question I had was in terms of the market, the real estate market, when you're dealing with commercial real estate agents and commercial real estate brokers, maybe nationwide, do they know what this is, or do they look at you like deer in headlights when you talk about tokenization and blockchain?
Yes and yes. So people, they a lot of them tend to know about it. We have people calling us who are saying, we own $500 million worth of commercial real estate. We've been exploring tokenization. We haven't met the right people to really explain it to us, the benefits, the pros, the cons, how it can help us, and somebody who can really walk us through it. And we come to them and say, let's talk about this. We'll explain it to you. Not only that, we give you every piece you need to hopefully make it a successful offering from start to finish. So, it's still education.
Yeah, I do commercial real estate here in Las Vegas, and some of the things that I talk about in the office, the people must think I'm crazy because they look at me like, what are you doing? What are you talking about? Yeah. So I keep telling them, listen to the podcast. Listen to the podcast.
Yeah, there you go. No, it is true. The general public is not fully aware. They've most of them, or many of them, not most of them, have heard of Bitcoin. So there's at least a foundation, but it's got such a bad taste, the cryptocurrency side, which we have nothing to do with. Tokenization has nothing to do with cryptocurrency, except for the underlying database, which is the blockchain.
And like we talked about before, I think when there's a marketplace out there that everyone understands and knows what it is and they just go to, I think this whole thing is going to really explode because the liquidity stuff here is just too good to ignore. It's just fantastic.
Well, we believe the liquidity is the key, and it's the key to any financial market exploding, is where you create liquidity for the ability for people to exchange, buy and sell, and really begin to grow a market. And that's where I believe the whole market will take off. And I think that's coming over the next year, between this year and next year.
Yeah, I think so too. I already see it happening a little bit more than, let's say, the last 6 months. It's getting a little bit more mainstream, I guess you can call it, but it's still got a long way to go. But people who want more information about this stuff, or maybe want more information about REINNO or yourself, and they need some push as to tokenize their project, how do they get a hold of you, Barry? What's the best way to do that?
So the best thing for them to do is, of course, go to our website at REINNO.io. That's REINNO.io. And all the information's on there, the phone numbers, the emails. Instead of giving them out, they can just go there and they'll see everything there. It'll answer most of the questions, and by all means, they're welcome to reach out to us at office@REINNO.io. And again, that's on the website. And you can call us. We'll be happy to talk to anybody about tokenization. That's what we're looking for, deals, although we have a backlog of them now. We're also looking for capital investors into the company itself. We're looking to raise $1 million just for scaling, to take it, to a much bigger level, because we've got everything already up and running. We've already invested about $1 million in getting to where we are now. And we're also looking for capital lending partners who want to get in and lend against debt and make a return.
Well, we have to do another podcast on that then. That sounds like a whole great topic to talk about as well. Vicki, are you floored with all this information? My God, this is incredible, huh?
I'm so floored, Ron. When have you ever heard me be so quiet in a podcast? Because it's like so much to take into. And Barry, I have to commend you and REINNO that you're actually changing the industry. You're making it easier for people to not only invest, but to understand blockchain and tokenization and how it can actually work for you without the bad taste in your mouth that Bitcoin gave everybody. It's fabulous. I would wish you a lot of success, but I don't think you need it. You're already way on the road to changing the industry. Absolutely.
It always comes down to the team, and I didn't even mention it when I talked about myself. I'm a 35-year investor in real estate, in commercial real estate. So, and as I said, we've got people on the team who have been in commercial real estate longer than I have. I've been involved in analyzing, financing, buying, hundreds of millions of dollars worth of property over the years. In 35 years is a long time. I started when I was 2, by the way, but
oh boy.
Figure that out, Barry.
point is that last point is that a lot of our competitors are techies who are trying to get into this space. We have the expertise on both sides. We have the technical expertise. We also have the real estate expertise. So we're able to marry the two in a way that makes sense and understand how each side has to augment and integrate with each other. And then, of course, it's getting the word out. And I'll tell you, we have a secret weapon on our team. Natalia, and she's phenomenal with the marketing. Obviously, that's how we connected.
Yes.
So, but we've got all the pieces covered, and we're ready to, explode this, and we're trying to keep up with the demand.
Well, all right. Well, that's great. Yeah, Barry, thank you so much for being a guest on the show. We really appreciate you taking the time out and explaining what REINNO does to our audience. I really love this. This was really, really great information, and I hope we can have you on again. You could be a friend of the show, and we could talk about your progress as things move forward.
Sure, absolutely. And I do apologize for speeding through this and talking very quickly. I am from the New York area, but it's also that passion that comes through and wanting to get that information out to everybody.
And that's what makes the best guests that we have on our podcast, those people that are innovative and passionate and are actually changing the world. And you fit right into that, Barry. We love you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And thanks for the opportunity to get the word out.
My pleasure. Our pleasure. That's great. All right. Well, thank you, Barry. Thank you, Vicky. Folks, you're listening to the Mappable USA podcast, where we put you on a map. We're at MappableUSA.com. Go to that website. If you scroll down, you see all our syndication sources. You pick the one you like best so you never miss another episode. And if you want to be a guest on the show like Barry was today, there's a guest tab there. You can fill that out. We'll see what we can do about getting you on the show. So once again, thank you all for listening. Thanks for all your support. And we'll see you next time on another Mappable USA podcast. Have a great week, everyone.